Where are you going to put the feeling, the state felt in that picture?
Well, I don't want to. I think that you can't separate them, really.
Well, I don't think I can't. They aren't separable.
That's my hope.
They aren't separable because contingencies of reinforcement always produce conditions which are felt by a sensitive person.
Well, and they're felt in quote, maybe not consciously felt. So therefore, they're felt somewhere in the unconscious.
Well, as I said, all behavior begins as unconscious behavior. I mean, it wasn't until fairly recently that anybody in the whole world was ever conscious. That only happened when the verbal environment started asking people, what do you think, what are you doing, do you see that, and so on. Then they began to look at their own behavior, and consciousness was built on top. When they say, what do you do about the unconscious? Well, I accept the unconscious. Well, my problem is the conscious. And that's the thing you have to explain. Way up there.
Yes. Do you think that it is possible in the human organism that over a period of time, from birth to, let's say, adulthood or even to death, that the contingencies and reinforcements that the organism encounters in daily life may bring about structural or physical changes within the nervous system, and that this may be the basis of altered or improved behavior as opposed to just learning the correct response?
Oh, well, I think nothing ever happens without changing the organism, and mostly the nervous system. That's the most important part of the body when it comes to changes in behavior. I assume that there are always physiological changes going on. I'm not talking about a black box. That I did not invent the expression the empty organism, and I don't believe the organism is empty. I want to work as closely with physiology as possible. I think a good behavioral account is the very best thing you can do for the physiologist by telling them precisely what the assignment is. Am I answering your question or not? That's what I think is going on, but I have no other instruments to tell me the nature of those changes going on. I don't say because I don't know, but the physiologist is finding instruments to get in there and find out. Yes.
Dr. Steven, I wonder if you have been in contact with the neurophysiologists in the last several years.
No, not.
I read
in our arm we had the old plethysmograph. It says collar and water in there and the dial and so on. And we would sit and look at the dial, and we could make the dial go up. In other words, we could make the volume of our arm increase. And we thought, well, we're really doing this now. We've got operant control of the blood vessels in the arm. And we discovered what we were doing was keeping more and more residual air in our lungs and squeezing blood out into our arms from the torso. This is one way to put blood in your arm, is to squeeze it out there by filling up your lungs as tightly as possible. And when we stopped doing that, we have no control over it at all. And a great many of these techniques, the yogi kind of thing, which train blood pressure rate and so on, the yoga relaxation is an operant kind of thing, skeletal muscle. And I don't know how it was done or what it's done, but it's skeletal. It is not autonomic, but it has autonomic effects, I'm sure. But there's mediation there. Now you want an operant mediation between, which will be a cognitive process, I dare say. And I don't know of any that I would not have a crack at trying to reinterpret. That's all I can say at the moment. I wouldn't swear there aren't any. It would be a very silly thing for me to do. Yes.
To understand what you're saying is that a condition, previously when you're talking about feelings, not in the sense of cognitive state.
I'm sorry, you're not getting through to me. I'll up the gain here, but let me see.
Okay. Can a conditioned respondent serve as an SD for further operant responses?
Well, could you give me an example rather than just a theoretical statement?
I'd say that in the presence of some kind of conditioned stimulus, my stomach starts churning. Can that churning of my stomach serve as an SD for my respondent behavior about what I do about that stomach?
Well, I should think so. There's a perfectly good stimulation coming from that, and if you've learned to take Alka-Seltzer or something like that, that's operant behavior. And you go and take it. Was that the rest of the example or not?
Dr. Skinner?
Yes.
I had to come from across the hall to ask you a question. Could I get back to something that you were saying earlier about the person being depressed who was out of town, out of their familiar surroundings? And I think you were suggesting perhaps that the cure or the proper response to a situational reactive depression is to provide another acceptable or comforting behavioral repertoire.
Right.
Okay. Could you respond to a situation perhaps in which there might not possibly be an alternative behavioral repertoire which could be substituted? For example, when I think about the fact that at this moment I exist here with you and everybody else, and conceivably shortly, sometime from now, I may no longer exist at all, and that causes me to feel somewhat depressed.
Yeah.
Short of changing my thought pattern and not allowing myself to be aware of this concept at all, is that all you could offer me in terms of lifting my spirits or not being depressed by the thought of my finiteness? It seems to me that I'm reaching for an alternative behavioral repertoire which isn't there.
Well, there are certainly unsolvable problems in the world. And death is one of them.